Okay, so let's talk next about aggregate supply. Okay, that's on page 9 of your notes. Aggregate supply, so known as the AS curve. So I'll talk in this lecture about the shape of the AS curve. Okay, so I have, as you can see, the ADS diagram. On the y-axis, we have GPL, so known as general price level, and then we have on the x-axis real national income, right? Also known as RNY. So let's talk about the shape. So in general, most supply curves tend to have an upward sloping shape, right? And for good reason, because as the prices increase, producers tend to want to produce more and more, right? So what you actually have when this relationship occurs is that you should have something like this, right? That as prices increase, people tend to produce more goods and services. But this straight line upwards is not really the shape that you see on page 9. So on page 9, what you actually see is something like this. So there are actually 3 regions that you need to draw when you draw the diagram on page 9. So the first part of the shape is this horizontal portion, right? So let's call that region 1. And then it sort of bows upwards like this, right? So let's call this region 2. And then you have a sort of vertical region like this, vertical section, right? Let's call this region 3. Right? So the shape that you see on page 9 is actually sort of like a combination of these 3 separate regions. You must show 3 regions clearly. 3 regions clearly. Okay, so I'll also unpack what is actually happening in regions 1, 2, and 3. So let's start with region number 1. Okay, region number 1 is also known as the horizontal range, right? Okay, let's talk about what horizontal means first, right? Horizontal graphically means that as you advance in terms of the x coordinate, there is no change in the y coordinate. So that's what horizontal means graphically. And you sort of place that in the variables that we have here. It means that as real national income increases, the general price level tends to stay the same, at least from a producer's point of view. Okay, so why is this so? So let's talk a little bit about this. So let's say I have an economy, so I have some factors of production, right? So let's say I have also 4 workers here, right? And then I must have some firms. So let's say I have one firm that's currently producing for me. So the firm it hires the worker for, let's say, $10. The firm produces a good or a service. So let's say the firm produces a star, right? And then the firm has to charge for that star. So let's say the firm charges $10 for the star, right? So the general price level is $10. Okay, so this is my starting point, right? And again, I'm talking about the horizontal range. So before I begin, what you'll notice is that in the horizontal range, there are sort of 3 workers that are unemployed or unutilized. So this actually is one of the big characteristics of the horizontal range. So the horizontal range is characterized by significant amounts of spare capacity. So this word is important. Okay, you have significant spare capacity or unutilized, in this case, workers. Unutilized factors of production, in this case, workers. So when you have that characteristic of significant spare capacity, what you can do is then, if a new firm comes in, there are so many workers looking for jobs. So the new firm says, who wants to work for me? Everybody raises their hand, and the new firm says, okay, you know what, let's just hire you and then pay you $10. Gonna produce a star, sell the star for $10 still, right? So what you'll notice in this case is that at least in the horizontal region, in region 1, the real national income is increasing, or can increase. It can increase from 1 star to 2 stars, right? But the general price level is still the same, right? So the general price level is still $10. So it's the same. Okay, just write this properly. So it's still $10. And the reason why it is still $10, if you recall, is because there were many workers available. So the firm had no reason to pay the worker above $10, and hence they can also sell the star at the same price, which is $10. Right? So horizontal range, a lot of spare capacity, you can increase real national income with no increase in the general price level. Okay, so let's go to the next region. So next region is region 2. Let's use blue color. Right, so region 2. Region 2. Okay, so region 2 is also known as the intermediate range. Intermediate range. Okay, so this is a case where if you notice in region 2, you are producing more goods and services, right? So if you compare the amount of goods and services, the x coordinate here is larger than the x coordinate. The x coordinate y2 is larger than the x coordinate y1. So maybe I'm already producing sort of 2 stars, right? I'm sort of producing 2 stars already. So if I'm already producing more, and I'll have, then what you notice also is that I only have 2 workers left, right? So let's say in second range, which is the intermediate range, there's a new firm that comes up. Okay, so this new firm, unlike the previous one, only has 2 workers. So then he says, okay, you know what? Why don't you come and work for me? Okay, when you have that, when there's less spare capacity, you start to have something called competition for scarce resources. Resources here being the workers, right? And you have something called supply bottlenecks occurring. So what actually happens is that this worker knows that the firm can only hire either him or the next guy. So this worker knows he has bargaining power, and he tells the firm, you know what, those guys before me, you paid them $10. I'm not gonna work for $10. You take it or leave it. So the firm says, okay, you know what, maybe I'll pay you more than $10. So because the worker knows that it's either him or the next guy, he can demand maybe $12. So the firm says, okay, what, you know what, I'll just hire you, I'll pay you the $12. But it means also that I have to sell the star at $12. So what do you notice in region 2? Right, in region 2, that real national income, which if you recall, is the amount of goods and services that is produced. So the goods and services is the star, so it advances from 2 stars to 3 stars. But the general price level also increases from $10 to $12. So that's the intermediate range, where because of competition for scarce resources, supply bottlenecks occur, and firms then pass on the increase in costs to consumers. So you have an increase in GPL. Okay, let's go to the next, the most controversial portion, which is region 3. Region 3 is also known as the vertical range. Right. So what is happening here? In the vertical range, there is no increase in real national income. There's no increase in real national income, but there is an increase in the general price level only. Okay, so what's actually happening? Okay, I might have drawn this wrongly, so let's erase this. Let's say I only have 3 workers instead of 4. Right, so let's say I'm already maxed out, right? I've hired all my workers now. So what's actually happening? So let's say when I've fully employed, all my resources are fully employed, what actually happens is, let's say a new firm comes in, right? And he wants to produce, let's say, another star, right? Because all the workers are fully employed, right? So resources, because all the resources are fully employed, he has to compete with the existing firms for with these workers. So what happens is this guy just comes in. He says, okay, this guy is paying you $12. I'm gonna pay you 15. And then I'll produce a star and I charge the star at $15. Right. So in this case, what actually happens in region 3 is that if you notice, this blue star no longer gets produced, but this orange one does. Right. So the number of stars produced is still 3. Still remains constant at 3, but the general price level has increased from $12 to $15. So this is when resources are fully employed and the economy has reached something called the full employment level. This special full employment level, or the amount of goods and services that characterize this full employment level, is given a very special label. It's called Y, subscript with F, standing for full employment level. Yeah. So when you are already at the full employment level, when all your resources have been fully and efficiently utilized, even if a new firm wants to produce something new, that he just takes over the factor of production of an existing firm and raises prices accordingly. You cannot produce any more goods and services. That's why your x coordinate cannot advance anymore. That's why it's vertical. Yeah. So AS curve, three ranges. First one, we have the horizontal range. We have the intermediate range, and here is where there's supply bottlenecks and competition for scarce resources. And then finally we have the vertical range, where you have reached the full employment level and real national income cannot increase. There is only an increase in the general price level.